Hello, my name is Rashad Muhammad, and I am your host for Pole Position. I'm here with Kathie Dunbar, who is running for mayor of Lansing. Welcome to the show, Kathie.
Thank you so much.
So I'm glad that we're here. I've actually referenced our history briefly. But
our origin story?
Our origin story. Yeah. So for those who don't know, I actually had a situation where the Lansing Police Department drove across my backyard in pursuit of someone who allegedly shot someone, and rather than take the time and let me know or let my family know that maybe we're in danger, it just felt no big deal. So I reached out to Kathie, and that's actually one of the inspirations for me doing this, is that someone told me that I should reach out to my city council person, and I really had never thought about how I could access someone in political office for that reason, for things like that. So from our first interaction, I always felt that you were a fighter, so I just was curious about.
That was a stupid interaction, by the way.
Yeah.
What happened with that officer?
Yeah.
Because if you put an active shooter in a field and you put a police car in the backyard between that shooter and your house, and something happens, where do the bullets go?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my kids were the people who alerted me that they were even there.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad you told me.
Yeah, I'm glad that we got to know each other. So, but I am curious about, like how did you become that way? What is your origin story, if you will? Like, where does that fight come from?
So, I've always grown up knowing that I have a social justice bone in my body. And I grew up in a very conservative community where Reagan Democrats, which are now full-blown Republicans, are very much Catholic, conservative, agricultural background. And I always had to fight against my dad and my uncles and their attitudes and their viewpoints about social justice, about poverty, about welfare. We grew up with a lot of those jokes at the family gatherings. And it really made me thicken up the skin to get the nerve over time to stand up to them.
Okay.
And I didn't have any brothers or sisters that bullied me as a kid. I didn't fight that way.
Okay.
But I learned to fight verbally.
Okay.
I learned to use words to make my arguments. And it's funny because I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go to law school. I ended up being a stand-up comic for a very long time. And now I'm in politics. And somebody told me along the way that preaching, lawyering, politics, and comedy are the same job. You're trying to influence somebody with your words and to achieve an outcome, a thought change, a behavioral change with your words. And it really struck me that I didn't end up being a lawyer, but I got the comedy and the politics.
Okay, so that's actually one of my questions. I was wondering, how do you feel your experience as a comedian taught you? What did it teach you about people?
Oh, so many things. So all my comedy was always real life experiences. I wouldn't say it was Seinfeld because he was, more bland than I am. But I always like to expose light on things that are sarcastic, ironic, life experiences. My kids became a very big topic.
Right.
But the thing that it taught me about people is how humor bridges the gap. And it really helped me, even when I'm in interactions, when I go door to door talking with folks about council or running for mayor or trying to release the tension in a conflict, using humor to break that down, because everybody wants to laugh. Everybody has that funny bone in them, and it truly relaxes the tension and helps people bridge that gap in communication. Okay. So, yeah.
So you were on the city council for 16 years. Is that correct?
Still am.
Still am.
Till December 31st.
How do you feel that experience helps you if you were to win your candidacy for mayor?
Well, it's an amazing leg up on anybody outside. because I have the municipal experience. So I've worked with all of the departments. I've worked with staff. One of the first things I did when I got there was ride the garbage truck, go down into the basement of City Hall where the mechanical room is, go and ride the forestry trucks and check out wastewater treatment plant. And not just for the tour that they give you, because they give you a tour to acclimate you to all the things. But I met the folks and remained friends with and had contact. I still have contacts in all departments that keep me up on what's going on at the grassroots level in the city, where the services are delivered, which is really important to me because I think that a lot of times that folks in elected office only interact with the department heads, and it's just like in the community. The real work is done with the people.
Right.
Yep.
I saw some statements online where you were critical of Mayor Shore's gun violence task force. I was wondering, how would yours be different?
It would have people that were actually affected by gun violence on it. So I'm going to tell you, as I was walking today, and I mentioned this earlier, right. I'm visiting voters. And for some reason today, of the 20 people that I actually got to speak to, 3 of them are family members who have had victims in their family to gun violence. Right. Grandparent, godmother, and a mother and sister. And they're so disappointed in the response to this. There should be such a sense of urgency in the city right now to curb this. Right. My kids are all in the age frame of the victims that we've lost so far. And we're at a record number right now. And to create a gun violence task force that has department heads, your comms director, your finance director, your public service director who works on your roads and sewers, to say that that is an effectual effort to curb this is disingenuous, and it's a waste of time and money. It really is. We should be talking to the mothers, the fathers, the coaches, the family members, the friends. It's striking to me how much you can learn at the level of the people, and to not involve them in this process when it's their family and friends who are the victims, possibly the shooters, and possibly the next victims. That's where the work needs to be done. So I'm very critical of it.
So I know that you have a nonprofit as well, right? I was curious about, how do you feel your experience doing nonprofit work? How has that changed you?
Oh, it's an incredible experience. So I started South Lansing Community Development Association about 20 years ago, and the entire nonprofit is based on people's voices. It started as a community voices project. It was based on not having a bunch of suits come in and tell a community based on their academics or their administrative experience what that community needs. It was to ask folks living that experience, what do you think you need to make your community safer, healthier, etc.? And usually the responses that we got from the community were vastly different than what the academic response would have been. Right. And so it really taught me to value those voices, to act on those voices, and to respect those voices and include those voices in everything that I do on council. So it's a very unique position that I'm in, to have the 16 years of municipal experience, but also the 20 years working in the community with the people. Yeah.
So I've interviewed a few people who are running for city council seats. What advice would you give those looking to hold a seat after you?
I would say, don't forget the people. Don't forget the people. And don't forget that you represent all the people. When I first ran for office, I remember somebody in the political circles telling me, you don't have to bother campaigning south of Holmes Road.
That's where I live, by the way.
Yeah, I represent a lot of people south of Holmes Road in my nonprofit and on council. And I asked why, and they said, well, those folks don't vote. And all you need are these 5 neighborhoods. If you campaign in these 5 neighborhoods, that's where all the voters are, and that's all you need to do to get over the edge. And it struck me, wow, in my nonprofit world, I work with all the folks south of Holmes Road. I'm advocating on their behalf in the nonprofit world. Why in the world would I forget about them, even if they don't vote? And the question that I asked the person who posed that to me, don't walk south of Holmes Road, why do you think if they don't vote? Why do you think they don't vote?
Right.
What excuse have you, what reason have you given them to vote? Have you tried to communicate with them? Have you encouraged them that their voice matters? Have you acted on their behalf in any way? So that's the biggest advice I would give anyone that comes into that office is remember, you don't just represent those who vote. You don't just represent those who voted for you. In the end, you represent the entire city, and you've got to take that into account when you make decisions.
When you think about after your term of mayor is done, I'm just putting that out there.
So 4 years from now.
4 years from now.
Okay.
When you look back, what do you want your legacy as mayor of Lansing to be?
Kindness. That's so easy to answer. I want to be remembered as somebody who made people feel that they mattered, who listened, who did everything that I can to achieve their goals, to create a safe community for them. I want people to feel heard and cared about and respected. And I think that that's something that is severely lacking right now in this administration. I heard a speaker earlier that you were interviewing, Miss Claretta, and she was mentioning the racial issues, and that doesn't have to be the way that they are. You can deal with these things when the complaints come up. You can investigate. You can resolve. You don't have to ignore people's situation when that many employees at City Hall are unhappy.
Right.
And you can tell that by the amount of turnover. We're on our 6th fire chief, our 4th finance director, our 3rd police chief, and that's only at the director level. There are plenty of employees that are turning over at all levels in government right now. That is a huge sign of a lack of leadership. And when they're dissatisfied in their positions, it's going to reflect in how they work with the community, because we are a community service oriented. That's what government is, right? We're here for the people. We're here to provide services to people. And if those providing the services are feeling neglected, ignored, retaliated against, in addition to the discrimination, I mean, that's all going to reflect in it. I would also hope that I can teach people that you can have a real person in the office. I really, it's funny. I have campaign signs from before when I ran as a council member that say she's the real thing, and that means something to me. Look at me, I'm not coming to you dressed like a mayor,
right.
And I probably, unless it's absolutely necessary for some event, I want to approach people the way that they feel most comfortable being approached and approaching me. I want folks to know that I have lived many of the experiences that they have experienced. I have been dirt poor. I have driven. I'll tell you my first story. You want to talk about comedy? When I was first elected to City Hall, I drove a Nova. I had a white car.
Classic.
I had a classic Nova, but the bumper was falling off of it. Okay, so my kids called it fat lip because it looked like somebody punched it. Seriously, it looked like somebody punched it in the grill, and it had a big old fat lip, so the bumper's hanging off of it. So the first time that I went to City Hall, I didn't even know I had a parking space in the basement of City Hall. So I parked out front on the street, and I went in through security. I'm dressed in plaid flannel pajama bottoms and an MSU sweatshirt. At that point, they tried to direct me to the 6th floor, which is court.
Right, I've been there.
Yeah, and I said, I'm going to 10. And they were like, well, that's City Council. And I said, yeah. And they said, well, there's nothing going on up there right now. And I said, but my office is up there. And they looked at me, and I'm like, okay, wait, I got to pull out the ID.
Yeah.
You know, and then the first time I actually got to park when I found out I had a parking spot in the basement, of course, I drive Fat Lip down there. And there's all these really nice cars lined up in a row. Fat Lip goes into my parking spot. And about 2 hours later, I'm upstairs, and the secretary comes into my office, and she says, Councilmember Dunbar, I am so sorry. I don't know who parked in your spot, but we're going to make sure that they know that they're not supposed to do that anymore.
That lip is not one.
And I said, I took out the keys, and I'm like, you want to move that car? You're probably going to need the keys. Jaw drop. Jaw drop. And I'm okay with that. Like, I want people to know I have struggled. I shop at Goodwill. I probably still will. You know, I have no need for the trappings of things. It's leading the city is mental. It's mental. And I want folks to know that I really want to be there for them.
Well said. Well said. So here's my super serious question here. And this might, it's a good, I think your mental comment is a good segue into this. Like I said, I got this sense that you're a fighter. Mm-hmm. So I want to know, what board game or card game are you a beast at? Like what do you do? Smack the table with, like...
This is going to be so silly. Okay, so Dominic and I war over King in a Corner. Kings in a Corner. It's a card game. So I used to be a blackjack fiend. Okay, I love the blackjack. Yeah. I love the poker face. I love playing poker and I love blackjack. But we've started playing King in a Corner, and I never even heard of it. It's to me, it's like a Crazy Eights kind of kids game, but we get hardcore about it.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Kings in the Corner.
Kings in the Corner. It's Okay. I don't look it up. Yeah, we have
so
this.
We
have motions that we do.
Right
He's
now.
Like watching. He's like,
yeah.
It's a plain old card game.
I feel like there's some competitive vibes in the space right now. But thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.
How can people learn more about your platform?
Sure. KathieDunbar.com. It's Kathie. Dunbar, Dunbar.com. As Claretta was saying, we had a lot of mailers go out with our personal cell phones on them. So if somebody wants to call my personal cell phone, it happens all day long. I don't mind. 517-614-9035.
That's like the Mike Jones campaign back in the day. Anyways.
No, they did it. And you know what? They did it assuming that people were going to call and yell and scream and say, we don't want it. What I did is I turned that into a dialogue. I said, I know why you're calling. I said, let's have this conversation. Let's talk through all of your issues, what you think you read, what I really stand for, and let's come to an understanding. And 95% of the people ended up with me. So it was all good. Dialogue is key.
You can't argue with that ratio. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in for, I think, our final episode of Pole Position for this year. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in the future. Bye-bye. Bam.
King in a Corner. That's the only thing I could say. That's what we play. We get